Hello, it is I, and today marks a whole 4 months since Forza Horizon 5 came out, and it's had very mixed opinions. Some people find the game to be broken, lackluster and boring, whereas others find it to be fun and enjoyable. And although I personally am finding the game a little bit boring and repetitive, I cannot deny that it's had a lot of improvements, some features which I end up taking for granted. But that's why this video exists, as today, I'll be going through 10 features in Forza Horizon 5 which I just cannot live without. Now before we get into this video, let's hit 4,000 likes if you want to be an absolute legend and help out the channel. Anyways, without further ado, let us get into this video. As you may know, Horizon 4 didn't exactly have the greatest car sounds, so the developers knew that for Horizon 5, they had to take things to a whole nother level, and they really did just that. None of the cars sounded the same, the sounds were so realistic, it was a huge improvement from the previous game. And if you weren't happy with the sound of the car, you could switch up the exhaust which changes the sound of your car, which is absolutely brilliant. You could even rev up your car in the auto show and compare each exhaust note to fine tune the sound you want to achieve, which is just amazing. I'm honestly so glad they added this feature, as Gran Turismo and Need for Speed have had this feature for years, so it was only right for Forza to catch up with its competitors as well. Talk about big improvements in Forza Horizon 5 without talking about the map, as it's the greatest map I've ever seen in a Forza Horizon game. That's a fact, not an opinion, as the map included very cool features such as the highway, which is just amazing. I love it so much. It's so long and wide with little bends, meaning you can easily max out your car. Also at the end of the runway is a ramp, which shoots your car into the sky, which is so satisfying to hit. I also love the drift roads up the volcano, as they're so long and windy, and it's just the ideal place for you to practice drifting. The runway is magnificent as well, as it's actually straight with no obstacles in the way, how a runway should be. And at the end of it, there's a ramp which launches your car into the sky. Oh yeah, and we cannot forget about the stadium, as it's never been seen in any racing game. There's even a little football in the middle if you want to punt it around, but unfortunately you can't play with it online because the ball doesn't sync up, which is sad, very sad. Now in the older Forza titles, applying text onto your car was very long and cumbersome, to the point that you just end up giving up. But in Forza Horizon 5 that is not the case, as instead of this long boring method, you could instead press X on your Xbox controller, which brings up a keyboard. Now you could type in whatever you want the text to be, and would you look at that, a text layer is produced for you to apply onto your car, which is so much more streamlined compared to what we saw in the previous Forza games. Now I know I showed this in a previous video of mine, but come on, how can you not live without this feature? It's amazing, I love this, thank you so much for adding this. The event creator was first introduced in Forza Horizon 5 as an update, and it was actually pretty cool. It had a few basic features where you could change up the map and drive on it, which you couldn't do in any of the older Forza titles. But in Forza Horizon 5 they took it to a whole nother level, with a lot more options to modify your custom event, as you could place random props, change up the colour of the tracks, add boosters which shoot your car into the sky. It was all very well executed. And of course with the addition of the stadium in Horizon Mexico, you could create some very unique events over there with a lot of space to work with. In fact, it's because of this event creator that I managed to create fun little challenges which I played with my mates in this video, which you should definitely watch if you have not done so already. Anyways, I'm very happy that they added this new and updated event creator in Forza Horizon 5, as when you're bored in the game, which is a lot of the time, then you can just mess around there and create some really fun and exciting tracks. It's a lot of fun to play around with. Now when I heard that convertibles were going to be a thing in Forza Horizon 5, I was very excited. But at the same time, I also felt like it was going to be a gimmick, which a lot of people got bored of quickly. But boy was I wrong, as it actually became a really cool feature in the game which a lot of people look forward to. Now sure, people aren't using the convertible roof button as much as developers would have expected, but I'm so happy they included it, because it gives a whole new perspective to existing cars in the game. For example, the Bugatti Zonda Cinque was only ever drivable as a coupe. You could only take the roof off in Forza Vista, but in Horizon 5, you actually get to drive the Cinque with its roof off for the first ever time in the Forza franchise. Same thing with the Bronco. At first it was just a new off-roader, but taking the roof off, it genuinely feels like you're in a completely different car. This feature actually makes you excited to see convertible cars in the game, because in the older Forza titles, seeing a convertible car was like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool I guess. But now it's like, yes, we have a convertible. I can't wait to see the reef animation take off the reef in the sun. There's a lot more hype towards convertibles in Horizon 5 pretty much. So yep, I'm really happy that they included convertibles into the game, and I really hope that we do see some more in the future. Now here's a weird feature you probably weren't expecting to see on the list, but the updated tyre smoke in Forza Horizon 5 is truly revolutionary. It's It's so dense and thick, it just makes me want to drift and hit those insane angles. Honestly, I think I've become a better drifter in Forza Horizon 5 purely because of the tyre smoke, as it actually makes me want to drift and see the smoke oozing out of the rear tyres. It's literally Snoop Dogg, what's going on? Honestly, it's incredible. Going from this insane tyre smoke back to drifting in Horizon 4, you realise how bare and naked these older Forza games feel. There's so much less drama in these older Horizon titles, whilst Forza Horizon 5 really shows its true arcade colours without coming across too childish. So yep, the updated tyre smoke in Forza Horizon 5 is honestly so amazing, and if it ever disappeared, I feel like the game would not feel the same. One thing that's massively improved in Forza Horizon 5 compared to the predecessor is the wheel support. As in Forza Horizon 4, the cars were pretty much undrivable with a wheel. The cars felt very floaty, the steering seemed to be disconnected, it felt like steering a boat. But in Horizon 5, it's a huge improvement. Not only can you drive with the wheel, but you can actually race and be competitive with it too. On top of racing, drifting is much easier with a wheel in Horizon 5. As if you see my older videos trying to drift with the wheel in Horizon 4, you may remember that I struggled just a little bit. It was so hard, it was literally impossible. But in Horizon 5, there's so much more control as it doesn't feel like you're driving a hovercraft. So you gotta big up the developers with the wheel support, as it's a huge step up from what was seen in Forza Horizon 4. Now another strange feature in Forza Horizon 5 which I found amazing is the thumbnail of your cars. As instead of the typical 3/4 view you see in the older games, it's now in this new isometric view which gives the cars a whole new perspective. Now sure, this update doesn't really improve the game or give any wow factor, but the new perspective does give a fresh breath of life to what is essentially a reskin Forza Horizon 4. So yep, it's pretty smart that they did change the car thumbnails, as if it remained the same, I reckon the game would have been criticised so much more for being identical to Forza Horizon 4. And I think this new view looks a lot nicer as well, come on. One really cool feature in Forza Horizon 5 was launch control, which was absolutely amazing. You can initiate it by holding the brake, shifting into reverse, shifting into first and flooring it. Yep, it's that simple. Comparing this with the old method of going into manual with clutch and doing this complicated procedure which is very hard to master, you realise how much easier this new method is. And of course with this feature you can launch your car with minimal wheel spin. So I'm very happy that they included this feature into Forza Horizon 5, as it really helps to streamline the process of launching your car. And it's just a very cool feature to have nevertheless. Here is something which a lot of people don't mention. As you may know, Forza Edition cars were first introduced in Forza Horizon 3, and they were actually pretty cool. Then in Horizon 4 they were renamed to Horizon Editions, and they were not much different to what we got in Horizon 3. They were essentially just modified cars with an XP or skill boost. And that was the problem with Horizon Edition cars from the older games. They didn't look unique. You can recreate these Horizon Edition cars easily with modifications. However, in Forza Horizon 5, they are so unique, completely different to the previous games. As in this current game, the Horizon Edition Pagani Huayra comes with a Zonda R-Wing, which is absolutely huge. Also, most of the Horizon Edition cars come with gold trim and badges, which you can't install onto stock cars. And of course, the Horizon Edition Nissan 350Z is practically an off-roading buggy, which looks absolutely amazing. So I'm super happy that these new Horizon Edition cars genuinely look unique, and you can't recreate them, as it makes these cars that bit more special. Well, fancy seeing you here. I thought you would have clicked on this video. Well, if you did click off this video, then you are a little... If you did enjoy this video and want to see more videos just like this one, then make sure to subscribe. We are on the road to 250k, so if you want to be an absolute legend and help out, then be my guest. Thank you very much, and I'll catch up with you guys very soon. Until next time, have a good one, guys. Stay safe, stay inside. Until next time, cheers.
My dinero's what I'm out to get. Sombrero, I get hat and then I'm out again. Got an A1 Chica with a drive like a 3 litre. That's what she needs D4 like that.